Buckle up, folks, because we're diving headfirst into the wild, wild world of alpha females. They're the lionesses of the concrete jungle, and they ain't for the faint-hearted. Imagine a lady who's got it all. The brains, the brawn, the Beyoncé-level confidence. Yeah, that's an alpha female for you. They're the ones leading the pack, setting the pace, and they ain't got no time for your nonsense. Now, I ain't gonna sugarcoat it for you. Being with an alpha female can be like hugging a cactus. Prickly, and you'll probably get stuck a few times, but hey, no pain, no gain, right? They're like a New York slice, cheesy hot, and if you're not careful, they'll burn you. But there's something about that spice, that heat, that keeps you coming back for more. Now, don't get me wrong, these ladies ain't all bad, but boy, do they pack a punch. So you've got your eyes on an alpha, huh? Well, let me tell you, it's not all roses and sunshine. First, let's talk about independence. Alpha females are as independent as a cat with a trust fund. They don't need you to hold their hand through life, and they sure as hell don't need you to rescue them. They got their own thing going on, and they're not looking for a knight in shining armor. They're looking for an equal. So if you're the kind of guy who likes to flex his muscles and play the hero, you might find yourself out of a job. Next up, ambition. Alpha females have got it in spades. They're not content to just sit back and watch the world go by. They want to be at the forefront, leading the charge. They've got goals, they've got dreams, and they're not afraid to go after them. If you're the kind of guy who's comfortable with a partner who's got more on her plate than just deciding what to cook for dinner, then you're in for a treat. And let's not forget about confidence. Alpha females have got it in droves. They know who they are and what they want, and they're not afraid to go out and get it. They're not the kind of women who need constant reassurance or validation. They're comfortable in their own skin. So, if you're the kind of guy who likes a woman who can stand on her own 2 feet, then an alpha female might just be your cup of tea. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Being with an alpha female isn't for the faint of heart. It requires a certain level of confidence and self-assuredness. You've got to be comfortable with a woman who's not afraid to take the lead, who's not afraid to call the shots, and who's not afraid to challenge you when she thinks you're wrong. So yeah, there are some perks to being with an alpha female, but don't say I didn't warn you about the flip side. All right, now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. The cons, the dark side of the moon, the stuff they don't tell you in the movies. First up, we have their dominance. Now don't get me wrong, it's not all bad. A woman who knows what she wants and ain't afraid to get it. That's gold. But sometimes it can feel like you're living with a drill sergeant. You know the type. Wake up at 5, 20 push-ups before breakfast, and God forbid if you leave the toilet seat up. It's like living in a boot camp, minus the fun of mud wrestling. Next, we got competitiveness. An alpha female doesn't just want to win, she needs to. Whether it's a game of Monopoly or who can eat the most hot dogs, she's in it to win it. And if you're the competitive type too, well, let's just say you better start practicing your victory dance. Because if you lose, you're going to hear about it for weeks. And if you win, well, you're still going to hear about it for weeks. It's a lose-lose, my friend. Then there's the high expectations. Picture this. You've had a long day at work, you come home, and your alpha female partner expects you to whip up a 5-star dinner, solve world hunger, and maybe cure cancer while you're at it. It's like living with a walking, talking checklist, and you better tick off every box, or else you're going to face the wrath of the alpha. And let's not forget about the independence. Now, I'm all for a woman who can handle her business, but sometimes it feels like you're just a sidekick in her superhero movie. She's out there saving the world, and you're just holding her cape. It's not the most ego-boosting situation, if you catch my drift. Oh, and one more thing, they're not exactly the most flexible people. Try suggesting a change in plans, and you might as well be suggesting we colonize Mars. It's their way or the highway, buddy. And let's be real, no one wants to be stuck on the highway. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. There's a certain thrill in being with an alpha female, the fire in their eyes, the determination in their voice, the way they walk into a room like they own the place. It's intoxicating, it's exhilarating, it's exhausting. So before you go chasing after that alpha female, remember this. It's not for the faint of heart. You gotta have thick skin and an even thicker skull. You gotta be willing to go toe-to-toe with her, to stand your ground, to prove your worth. So there you have it, folks. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But hey, to To each their own, right? So, who's the lucky guy that gets to tango with these fierce ladies? Well, let me tell you, it ain't no walk in the park. Now let's get this straight. If you're a guy who's all about being the center of attention, then maybe an alpha female ain't your cup of tea. You see, these women, they're not the type to sit on the sidelines. They're the ones leading the charge, the ones who are going to stand out in a crowd. So if you're looking to play second fiddle, then you might need to rethink your strategy. First things first, an alpha female needs a mate who's confident. Now, I'm not talking about some cocky, arrogant jerk who thinks he's God's gift to women. Nope, I'm talking about a guy who's secure in his own skin, who knows his worth and doesn't need validation from anyone else. A guy who can stand tall next to his alpha female without feeling threatened or overshadowed. Next up, an alpha female needs a mate who's supportive. Now, this ain't about being a cheerleader, fellas. This ain't about just clapping and cheering from the sidelines. A supportive mate is someone who's going to be there for her through the thick and the thin. Someone who's going to listen when she needs to vent, who's going to offer a shoulder to lean on when she's feeling low. And, most importantly, someone who's going to respect her drive and ambition and not try to hold her back. And speaking of ambition, that brings me to my next point. An alpha female needs a mate who's equally ambitious. Now, I ain't saying you gotta be some high-powered CEO or anything like that, but you gotta have some sort of drive, some sort of passion. You gotta have goals and aspirations just like she does, because let's be real, an alpha female ain't gonna be content with a couch potato. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds too intense, too demanding. And you're right, being with an alpha female ain't for the faint of heart. It requires strength, resilience, and a whole lot of patience. But let me tell you, fellas, it's worth it. Because an alpha female, she's a force to be reckoned with. She's a woman who's gonna push you to be the best version of yourself, who's gonna challenge you, inspire you, and keep you on your toes. So if you think you've got what it takes to be with an alpha female, then go ahead, be my guest. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Well, there you have it, folks. The alpha female in all her glory and terror. We've seen the good, the bad, and the downright ugly of being hitched to an alpha female. We've laughed, we've cried, and we've probably questioned our life choices. But hey, no one ever said love was a walk in the park. On one hand, you've got the perks, the power, the passion, the go-getter attitude that can light a fire under your ass. But then there's the flip side, the dominance, the control, the potential for your ego to take a serious beating. And let's not forget about the alpha female's compatible mate. Remember, it's not about being the biggest or the baddest, it's about complementing her strengths and balancing out her weaknesses. But let's face it, at the end of the day, it's about whether you can handle the heat. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and check out our other videos. Because trust me, you ain't seen nothing yet.